the most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. You know, just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.
It's Saturday the 10th of August. I'm Jamie East, and this was a week that saw riots break out across the UK, political condemnation and counter-protests take place, Kamala Harris picks her vice president candidate, and Team GB stack up the gold at the 2024 Olympics.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
But not the news.
That's the sound of anti-immigrant protesters throwing bricks at riot police in Sunderland on Friday as far-right violence continued to spread across the UK last weekend. By Monday, police had made over 100 arrests after the unrest, which saw 4 police officers hospitalised and saw buildings and vehicles set on fire. There were counter-protests calling for calm, and among them was RMT union boss Mick Lynch, who spoke at an anti-racism rally in Belfast on Saturday.
We fought them in the 30s, we fought them in the 70s in Britain. We will not allow the right wing to dominate our working class communities, and we will come together every week in every town.
On Sunday, Prime Minister Keir Starmer spoke out to condemn the growing violence. The Labour leader, who headed up the Crown Prosecution Service during the 2011 London riots, warned rioters about the consequences of their actions.
Those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online.
On Monday night, rioting continued with police injured and arrests made in Belfast, Darlington and Plymouth. By Tuesday, almost 400 people had been arrested. The government moved swiftly, including creating what they've called a standing army of specialist officers who'll be deployed to hotspots while officers continue to comb through social media footage to identify instigators. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says there's no question of the violence being seen as a genuine protest.
Reasonable people who have all those sorts of views and concerns do not pick up bricks and throw them at the police. So all those who are involved in that kind of violent thuggery, that is extremist activity. This is a thuggish minority of criminals. They do not speak for our communities.
PM Keir Starmer held a second Cobra meeting on Tuesday evening, promising that justice would be swift for those involved. His warning came as James Nelson of Bolton became the first person to be sentenced for his part in the disorder. He'll serve 2 months in prison for causing criminal damage. Elon Musk, the owner of social media platform X, continued to stir things up on Tuesday, posting about the inevitability of a civil war in the UK and criticising the government's reaction to the disturbances. He and others have persistently complained about what they say is a 2-tier policing system, but former Met Police Assistant Commissioner Nel Basu says that this is absolute nonsense.
The reality is we serve the law, so if you break the law, it doesn't matter what you look like or what your ideology is. If you commit a terrorist offence, you should be dealt with under the Terrorism Act. I don't think there's anything 2-tier about it.
The nation was braced for more violent anti-immigration protests on Wednesday evening, but instead, thousands of counter-protesters turned out to protect the buildings on the far-right list. There were peaceful gatherings across the country in cities including Bristol, Walthamstow, Brighton and Newcastle, and in Liverpool the crowd chanted "Migrants are welcome here" as they filled the streets around an asylum centre. Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley says the police are working hard to clamp down on those behind the weekend's violence.
We'll throw the full force of the law at offenders, whether that's charging people with assaults, riot, and if terrorism offences are appropriate, I know the Director of Public Prosecutions has said he's prepared to consider that.
The violence we've seen over the past week was triggered by the horrific incident in Southport, which left 3 children dead and fuelled the online rumour mill, with many accounts incorrectly identifying the suspect as a Muslim immigrant. It led to attacks on mosques and asylum seeker accommodation, with protesters in Rotherham attempting to set fire to a holiday inn used to house migrants on Sunday. Conservative MP and Tory leader hopeful Mel Stride blamed social media for stoking the violence.
There is no doubt that misinformation on social media has played a significant role in what has unfolded here. And I think it's also very important the way that public figures now comment on what is an inflammatory situation, which we want to calm down rather than stoke up.
And the government's independent advisor on political violence, Lord Walney, says rampant disinformation from the far right fuelled the hatred.
There's a very concerted campaign of misinformation, very deliberately spread by far-right actors. They have seized an opportunity to act. You can propagate false information very quickly, and you can create loose groupings that the police have to work incredibly hard to keep up.
There was political reaction on Monday, with Shadow Home Secretary James Cleverly critical of how the new Labour government responded to events on the streets of cities across the UK.
They should and could have been quicker. We want to support the government in taking firm action against this violence and disorder, but they have to move much more quickly. They have to be more agile, more decisive.
There were calls from both sides of the House for a recall of Parliament, with Reform UK leader Nigel Farage repeating the far-right trope about a two-tier policing system in the UK. Labour MP Diane Abbott had a different view, but says Parliament needs to take the events that occurred very seriously.
We need to be able to question ministers on what exactly is being done. And we want to speak up for our communities. These are racist riots, and we need proper debate in the House of Commons.
Wednesday saw social media and messaging channel Telegram announce it was working to crack down on any far-right groups using its platform to plan violent action. Deputy PM Angela Rayner said social media companies do have a responsibility not to facilitate those intent on disorder.
People have a responsibility to deal with the online misinformation, but also not to spread that hate. And people who are online spreading violence and inciting violence will be met with the law, as well as those that turn up and try and throw missiles at police and at our communities.
Policing Minister Dame Diana Johnson MP says that the government's continuing to focus on the role that social media companies and potential malicious actors have played in the stirring up of online misinformation and disinformation.
We know that the Online Safety Act, there are provisions within that we want to see that social media companies acting on now. And in fact, Ofcom wrote to them to say you need to get on with dealing with the misinformation, the disinformation that has been clearly on social media.
With less than 100 days to the November elections, US politics saw former President Trump under pressure. At a rally in Atlanta last Saturday, he baselessly accused Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp of conspiring against him in the upcoming presidential election. His 90-minute speech also included several false claims that he'd won Georgia in 2020, despite losing to Joe Biden by 12,000 votes. The ex-president was indicted by a grand jury last year for attempting to overturn the state's election results, and recent polls have shown Kamala Harris gaining ground on Trump, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says the outburst showed that the Donald was feeling the pressure.
When Donald Trump's ahead and he feels like he's comfortably ahead, he is willing to go with conventional, smart political advice. As soon as he thinks it's getting close, he goes back to the greatest hits.
After weeks of speculation, on Tuesday, Kamala Harris finally announced her pick for a running mate.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Tim Walz is seen as a solid pick. He's currently governor of Minnesota, he's what's known as Midwestern nice, and has a solid career. Enlisted in the National Guard, was a congressman, and even owns a dog and a cat. He's certainly a less controversial pick than Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who was also in the running, and Walz could prove difficult for Republicans to find an attack line against. He came out swinging on Tuesday evening in a direct attack on Donald Trump.
He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground, and make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
And as the week went on, it became clear that while there are still plenty of questions about how the presidential race will end, there's no question about which candidate has got momentum right now. Harris and Walz amped things up as the week went on, making rally appearances in swing states and seeing the polls shift in their direction. The man who stepped aside to make all this possible is, of course, US President Joe Biden, and he's been keeping a fairly low profile as his vice president makes all the running for the Democrats. But he sat down for an in-depth interview with CBS News on Thursday and warned that the stakes remain extremely high when it comes to Donald Trump.
He means what he says. We don't take him seriously. He means it.
All the stuff about if we lose, there'll be a bloodbath. Look what they're trying to do now in the local election districts where people count the votes. You can't love your country only when you win.
Trump himself held a press conference at Mar-a-Lago on Thursday afternoon, but there wasn't any significant announcement, just over an hour of him complaining about how the media don't report the size of the crowds that turn up for his rallies. The new aggressive tone from the Harris campaign seems to have had Donald pining for the days of Joe Biden.
Tell you what, from a constitutional standpoint, from any standpoint you look at, they took the presidency away. And people were saying he lost after the debate, he couldn't win. Well, I don't know that that's true necessarily, but whether he could win or he couldn't win, he had the right to run.
The week started with some positive news for Ukraine as President Zelensky confirmed on Sunday that F-16 fighter jets are now operational for the first time since the Russian invasion began in 2022. The Ukrainian leader has been urging allies to supply the jets since the start of the war, but hesitations and training delays have stretched out that process. The F-16s are expected to bolster Ukraine's weakened air defences, helping to deter Russian aircraft and intercept missiles. And in a video released on Sunday, Zelensky confirmed that the Ukrainian Air Force has already begun deploying the jets and said it's been a long time coming.
We have held hundreds of meetings and negotiations to strengthen the capabilities of our aviation, air defence and defence forces. We often heard the word impossible in response, but we made it a reality in our skies. F-16s are in Ukraine.
In recent weeks, Russia's been quietly gaining ground in the Donetsk region of Ukraine, using its superior manpower to gradually push back exhausted Ukrainian defenders. And although Ukraine now has the F-16s, the flow of weapons and troops to the front line's been slow. So it was somewhat surprising when it was announced this week that Ukraine had launched an insurgent into Russia's Kursk region. It certainly appears to have taken the Russian military by surprise, and the Ukrainian forces met relatively little resistance at first, and by Wednesday were closing in on a natural gas terminal and a key railway junction as the Russian governor of the region declared a state of emergency. Not surprisingly, Vladimir Putin wasn't happy, describing the raid as a major provocation. He held a meeting with key leaders on Wednesday and had assurances from his chief of staff Gerasimov that things were under control, although it didn't really appear to be the case.
The enemy's advance into the territory in the Kursk direction has been halted. Units of the North Group of Forces, together with the Border Service, continue to destroy the enemy. The operation will conclude with defeating the enemy and reaching the state border.
The surprise attack continued on Thursday when it appeared that Ukrainian troops were now 13 miles across the border and continuing to make progress as Russia scrambles for reinforcements and to close down the unexpected attack. Ukraine have been noticeably quiet about the insurgent and what the reasoning behind it is, but Zelensky made a subtle reference to the new strategy on Thursday in his nightly address. He said that Russia brought the war to our land and it should feel what it has done. Military experts still aren't sure if the attack's a distraction, an attempt to draw Russian forces away from Donetsk, or a strategy to even matters out when it comes to peace talks. Ukrainian MP Kira Rudik says it's important to send a message to Russia.
The one who is starting the war should expect that at some point the war would come to their door. We are using all the capabilities that we have to defend ourselves and to push Russian forces as farther from our homes as possible.
Still to come at the Standout 7, Team GB go for gold and Ariana Grande gets a little bit sweaty. Right after this.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
Welcome back.
Eluned Morgan is set to become the third leader of Labour in Wales and the first woman to hold the position of First Minister. She's been sworn in after her predecessor Vaughan Gething stepped down after just under 3 Liz Trusses in charge. Morgan's the first Welsh female leader and was the only candidate for the position, and says she's conscious she hasn't been through a formal leadership campaign. She's proposing a tour of Wales during the summer so she can understand people's key priorities across the country. She says it's a significant day for Wales.
Women watching today, your potential is limitless. The path to leadership is not now just a possibility, it's a reality. And I look forward to the day when a woman becoming First Minister is no longer extraordinary, but a normal part of our Welsh political life.
All eyes were on Paris this week as the 2024 Olympic Games continued, with Team GB intent on defending their 5th place in the medal table. Sunday was one for the record books as Novak Djokovic, the man with 24 Grand Slam wins, finally achieved a goal that had always eluded him. The 37-year-old Serb picked up his first Olympic gold after beating Carlos Alcaraz in straight sets to become the champ in the men's singles at Roland Garros. It marked just the second medal for Serbia at the Olympic Games, following another gold in the shooting last week. Speaking after the match, Djokovic said it was a tough battle.
Incredible battle, incredible fight. I mean, I honestly, when the last shot went through him, past him, that was the only moment I actually thought I can win the match.
There was Olympic gold and a world record set on Monday evening as Team GB's women's cycling team locked up the top spot in the team sprint event. Meanwhile, there was drama over the mixed triathlon relay event, with Belgium withdrawing its team at the last minute over concerns about E. coli in the Seine waters. Britain were the defending champions, but could only manage a bronze in the end as Germany triumphed in an epic sprint finish. There was still another goal to come, however, as Keely Hodgkinson won the women's 800 metres at just 22 years of age.
I think that's when it all sunk in, and I think you'll see some real emotion from me. But yeah, no, that was absolutely incredible. I've worked so hard for this over the last year, and I think you can see how much it meant to me when I crossed the line. And yeah, I can't believe I've finally done it. It means so much, and to do it here, where better. The audience was absolutely incredible. It felt like a home crowd to me in itself in Paris. So yeah, I'm super happy.
There were more medals for Team GB on Tuesday, including a bronze for skateboarding sensation Sky Brown. She followed up her Tokyo bronze, which she won at just 13 years of age, and this time did it in spite of a dislocated shoulder earlier in the week. There was also a silver for Josh Kerr in the men's 1500 metres, a silver in the men's sprint on the cycle track, and a bronze for Lewis Richardson in the boxing. There was heartbreak, though, for Andrea Spedalini-Siriex, who had won a bronze in the women's synchronised platform, but struggled in Tuesday's women's platform final as she finished 6th and out of the medals.
I'm not even upset with the competition. It wasn't meant to be. Genuinely, I'm not trying to be macho or anything. I'm not upset with my performance 3 years ago. I didn't even want to be alive. So today I'm just happy that I'm alive and I've got my family to support me. Wednesday
saw Team GB celebrate their 1,000th Olympic medal in the modern era. There were no new gold medals, but there were some hard-fought silver and bronzes to add to the tally from both cycling and athletics. Thursday saw an unexpected win for Team GB in an event that's brand new to the 24 Olympics. It's kite surfing, and Britain's Ellie Aldridge won 2 races in the final series, which was enough to secure the first ever kite surfing gold medal. Ellie was delighted.
It's been incredible. We haven't had the easiest conditions. It's been really tricky, but yeah, it's really cool. I hope everyone watches it on TV and thinks the same thing. So happy to be part of it.
Ariana Grande is about to become immensely famous all over again. She's starring in the new 2-part movie version of Wicked, playing Good Witch Glinda, alongside Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey and Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. She's also popped up at the Olympics in Paris to support gold medal winning machine Simone Biles, and now she's doing the world's most viral show, Hot Ones. Judging by the teaser trailer, Ariana's not someone who eats a lot of chicken wings, but the episode has just dropped on YouTube.
No, my face changed because I think I'm learning that I don't like hot sauce. Not for me. It's not a spice problem, it's a
flavor problem.
It's a tone. Is this one that you famously hate?
Well, we actually make it.
I love it.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
The most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. You know, just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.